Is the 17th day of Chodesh Shvat, and we are learning Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph of Maseches Pesachim, picking up from the bottom of Kuf Amud Beis where we left off yesterday, just beginning the sugya, and this whole next Daf plus is going to be talking about the halachas of Kiddush b'makom Seuda. Every now and then, somebody will say, "Oh, we need to make Kiddush. Didn't you make Kiddush already?" No, we have to have Kiddush b'makom Seuda. Where does such a din come from? What exactly is this all about? So the Gemara quotes at the bottom of Kuf Amud Beis, "Oisam b'nei Adam shekidusha b'beis hakneses." Those people that made Kiddush in shul. Apparently, there was a custom, but not everybody. But some people make Kiddush in shul. Amar Rav, says Rav, Yidei Yain Lo Yotzu, they have not fulfilled the obligation of Yain, meaning they go home, they still need to say another Bari Pri Hagafen, because they haven't made a Bari Pri Hagafen that they are Yotze. However, says Rav, Yidei Kiddush Yotzu, they have fulfilled the mitzvah of Kiddush, meaning they don't need to make the bracha Mekadesh HaShabbos once again. Ushmul Amar, and Shmuel says, turning over to Kuf Aleph, Af Yedei Kiddush Lo Yotzu. They also have not fulfilled the mitzvah of Kiddush, meaning they need to they need to make the So Rav had said Yedei Kiddush Yotzu. They have been mekayim the mitzvah of Mekadesh Shabbos. Shmuel says that they have not fulfilled Yain or Kiddush. They would need to make the whole Kiddush again. So that's the machlokas. If you heard Kiddush in shul, or you said Kiddush in shul, what do you need to say at home? Says Rav, you would need to say Bari Pri Hagafen. Shmuel says both Bari Pri Hagafen and Mekadesh Shabbos, both brachos of Kiddush. Ela Rav, but says the Gemara, according to Rav, Lama le likidushe bebeise. If this is true, so then why do you go home and make Kiddush at home? Why do you need to make Kiddush at home? So just start, say Bari Pri Hagafen. Meaning the assumption is that you are going to go home and you are going to say Kiddush again. Says the Gemara, in order to be able to fulfill the mitzvah on behalf of your family. You're going home, there's you got a wife and kids at home, you have to make Kiddush for them. You said Kiddush in shul, you heard Kiddush in shul, says Rab, you yotze. Not a problem. You'll need to make a Bari Pri Hagafen at home because you're about to drink there. But Kiddush again, Mekadesh Shabbos, you would only need to do for your wife and kids. But in theory, if you were going home to eat by yourself, so you make a Bari Pri Hagafen, you wouldn't need to make Mekadesh Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Ushmuel, and according to Shmuel, Lama li likidusha b'beit knishta. If Kiddush in shul achieves nothing, meaning not Kiddush and not Yain, so then why would you make Kiddush in shul at all? Says the Gemara, in order to be able to fulfill the obligation on behalf of the guests, because they are eating and drinking and sleeping in the shul. Tosfos here immediately asks the question, Tosfos Dibra Maschel da'achlu, it says, da'achlu v'shasu v'ganu b'beit knishta, and if you would ask the question, didn't we say at the end of Maseches Megillah, Bate Knisias ein Eichlin Bahem ve'ein Shaisen Bahem, you're not allowed to eat and drink in shul. Afal gav da achil v'shtir shel mitzvah mutter, and even though eating and drinking of a mitzvah is mutter, because like we said in Yerushalmi, show you Eichlin Sham b'Kiddush HaChodesh, they would eat there for Sudash HaChodesh. As the Gam Achshav Nagim L'Shtaz Kais Havdalah, we drink a cup for Havdalah. Or bris milah, and you make bris milah in shul. Mikol makom she'ena shel mitzvah. If it's not of a mitzvah, then you wouldn't be allowed to do so. And then says the Tosfos, v'sheina asur. There would also be asur. So the Tosfos goes on to explain. The bottom says yesh lem delav dafu knista ela chadarim sheyu smuchim lebeis hakneses kari beit knista. Umisham hayushem hakiddush, and from there they would hear the Kiddush. What does that sound like? It sounds like they would make Kiddush in shul, and then the place that they were eating and drinking and sleeping, they would have that in the social hall, effectively, which means that you could hear Kiddush in one room, and then Kiddush would be said in one room, and then the eating and drinking would be in another room. That's going to be important for discussions a little bit later on in our Amud and tomorrow with regards to how far is far with regards to Kiddush b'makom suda. So keep that in mind. So effectively, people did eat, drink, and sleep in the social hall, in the ancillary rooms of a shul, but not in the base Knesset itself. Does that mean that we're not allowed to eat and drink in our shuls today? So there's an interesting question of whether or not our shuls today are built with the Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. Overwhelmingly, most shuls are built with a little bit of a t'nai, that with a condition that if you want, you could use it for other things. It does not have the full-fledged Kedushas Beis HaKnesses, which has ramifications, both positive and negative, which we'll discuss another day. Nevertheless, says the Gemara, 5 lines down, Shmuel is consistent with his reasoning. The Amar Shmuel, because Shmuel says, Ein Kiddush el b'makom suda. Shmuel says that you need to make Kiddush in the place that you are eating. Now, this is an interesting question. Is this a din in Kiddush? Kiddush isn't Kiddush if it's not the b'makom suda, or the Su'uda isn't a Su'uda unless it has Kiddush. Both possibilities. Says the Gemara, they understood from this, Hani mili mi bais the bais, that this is true only if you're going from one house to another. If you make Kiddush in one place, in one room, and you are then going to another room or another house, bais means other room or house. Aval mimakom makom bechad beisa like, but to move from one place to another place in the same house or in the same room, that would not be a problem. That's not going to be a problematic that's not going to be a lack of Kiddush makom suda. Amar lahu Rav Ana bar Tachlifa, says Rav Ana bar Tachlifa, zimnin sigin hava kamina kamin the Shmuel. There were many times that I was standing in front of the Shmuel v'nachis me igr la'ara, and he came down from the from the attic, from the roof to the ground. V'had mekadosh we make Kiddush again, meaning he went from the top floor to the bottom floor of a 2-story house, and he would make. I mean, he would maybe daven up at the top. They had Kiddush daven, and they had a Kiddush up at the top, and then he came down to eat his meal. He made Kiddush again. V'af Rav Huna savers. This is also what Rav Huna thought. Ein Kiddush el b'makom suda. You have to make Kiddush in the place of your suda. The Rav Huna Kaddish, because once Rav Huna made Kiddush, v'is akra le shaga, and his lights went out, meaning he ran out of fuel. V'ayli sham lemani lebei genone de Rabba Bre, and he took his stuff, meaning he took his food, his plates or whatever, to the house of or to the place that his son Rabba was eating. The have a shag because he had candles. I mean, he went to walk down the street to his son's house with all of his food and stuff. The have a shag because he had a candle there. V'kadish, and he made Kiddush again. V'tam midi, and then he ate something. Alma Kasavar, apparently he holds in Kiddush el b'makom suda, that you need to make Kiddush in the place of your suda. So, and he couldn't have his suda there because it was dark. So he made Kiddush, lights went out, and then off he went to the next place to make a suda. It says va'af Rabba Savar, and Rabba himself held in Kiddush el b'makom suda. Rabbi himself held that you need to have Kiddush b'makom suda. The Amar Abai, because Abai says, Ki havina be'mar, when I was in Mar's house, meaning Abai says, I grew up in the house of Rabba. Abai was an orphan, and he would go live in Rabba's house. It's a question what exactly the name Abai means. Was Abai his real name, or was Abai a nickname? But Kihava Mekadosh, when he would make Kiddush, Amarlan, he said to us, Ti'imu midi, eat something. Meaning, Abai says, I went to hang out in Rabba's house, in Rabba's house, and he would say, have something to eat. Dilma as lisu le ushpisa, when you go back to the place that you're staying, misakr l'chushraga, the candles will go out, the lights will go out. V'loy mekadosh lechu beis achila, and then you would not have made Kiddush in the house where you were eating. Uvikidusha dahacha loy nafkisu, and you're not yotze with this Kiddush. Why? The ain't Kiddush b'makom suda, because you need to have Kiddush b'makom suda. It sounds from what Abai is testifying from Rabbah is that you won't be yotze Kiddush. You're not going to be Yotze Kiddush if you didn't have a Su'uda here. So in order to be Yotze Kiddush, you have to eat a meal here. Then Kiddush Ella b'makom Suda. And then he's saying when you go back home, you are going to be able to keep eating. You'll already be Yotze Kiddush and you'll already be Yotze Su'uda. And then you can finish eating over there if you want. But go home, meaning if you go home without having eaten something here, then the Kiddush that I just made, you're not covered with. Says the Gemara, hold on a second. Ini, is this really so? Va'amar Abai, didn't Abai also tell us, Kol mili demar have avid karav, that everything that Rabba did, he pasened like Rav. Rabba always pasened like Rav. And levar mehani tras, except for three things. So how could it be that he pasened like Shmuel in such a case? I mean, Shmuel's the one that says that you did Kiddush lo yatsa. But Rabba always passing like Rav. So why is he saying, eat something so that when you go home, you will already be Yotze Kiddush? So there's only 3 times that Rav ever passing like, that the Rabba ever passing like Shmuel over Rav. What are those 3 cases? Matir mi beged lebeged, with regards to whether or not you can untie tzitzis from one beged and put it onto another beged, which is Gemara in Menachos, coming up for the Daf Yomi Chevra. Umadlikin min ner l'ner, and whether or not you are allowed to light from one ner Chanukah to another ner Chanukah, and whether or not we paskin v'halacha ke Rabbi Shimon be'greira, with regards to the question of dragging a bench on Shabbos, which is malacha that you don't have kavanah to be violating Shabbos, but the result is going to be that you have dug a ditch. Says the Gemara Detanya, because the Brisa says. These are pretty much all in the Maseches Shabbos. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon says, a person is allowed, says Rabbi Shimon, to drag a bed, a chair, and a bench on Shabbos, as long as you don't have explicit intention to be digging a ditch. And in those cases, that's where Rabbah held like the opinion of Shmuel over the opinion of Rav. Those were the cases. Says the Gemara, no. That's true. He did passing like Shmuel in those cases. But kechumri de Rav hava avid. He was machmer for Rav. Kekuli de Rav loy hava avid. That doesn't mean that he passing like all of the kulas of Rav. Meaning he always passing like the chumras of Rav, but he didn't always passing like the kulas of Rav. And here, he was machmer. He was machmer for the opinion of Shmuel. Meaning, whenever there's a machlokes Rav and Shmuel, and Shmuel is more mekel, so that's where he passing like Rav. That's where he always passing like Rav over Shmuel. But if Rav was being more mekel than Shmuel, it's not always the case that Rabbah would paskin like the opinion of Rav, and therefore, it makes sense that Rabbah would have been machmer for the opinion of Shmuel that you are obligated to go home and make Kiddush again. Now, there's also an interesting discussion that the Rishonim and Acharonim discuss here with regards to Kiddush b'makom Suda. Is there a value in sitting over standing for Kiddush? Is that a heightened form of Kiddush b'makom Suda, of sitting at Kiddush? So there are many that have the minhag of standing up for the first bracha of, not so many today, but many that still have the minhag of standing up for the first bracha of Kiddush on Friday night and sitting for the second bracha, because the first bracha is edus, you have to stand up for it, that's testifying, so you need to stand. And then the second bracha of Mekane Shabbos you can sit down for. And there are many that have the minhag when there is no such edus question at all on Shabbos morning, because the bracha is only very pregafen, that Badafka should be sitting and not standing, while there are those that argue that no, you should stand because of the chashivas of the Kiddush. So you find the minhagim go lekan in all sorts of different directions. With regards to making Kiddush in Shul, bichlal, so there's an interesting question of why we do it. Bisman hazeh, nobody seems to eat and sleep and drink in Shul. that doesn't seem to be the case. So the Achronim largely discuss, and in Eretz Yisrael, to the best of my knowledge, that Kiddush in shuls are no longer a thing. But the Achronim already discussed from the Gaonim what happens. Is it a bracha levatala today to make Kiddush in shul if nobody's eating or drinking, sleeping in shul? So already from the Rav Nathan going, yeah, if you are eating and even if there's nobody eating, sleeping, drinking in shul, once the Chachamim made a takana that this is the appropriate thing to do, then it's the appropriate thing to do. Is the person that's making the Kiddush allowed to drink from that kos of Kiddush? So if he's not being kaveh suda here, so that's what the minhag is, that if you have somebody that's making Kiddush, he shouldn't drink there. Because he's not being kaveh his suda, he's going home to make his suda, which is why in general we give it out to kids to drink. So how does that help anybody? Because somebody that's going to be yotze Kiddush in shul would be yotze with a Kiddush even if they didn't drink. You don't need to drink in order to be yotze Kiddush, which is also another discussion that the Achronim have. And all of these discussions come out of the Rishonim Achronim on today's Amud Be'ez Hashem. We'll see some more of these nafkaminas and some of these discussions in halacha tomorrow. Hope everybody is having a beautiful day, and we will see you tomorrow.